It's time to drop knowledge. Your Access All Areas panel begins now. Moderated by your AAA resident,
Anna Marie.
Give a round of applause for Anna Marie, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everybody. That drop was so funny. Welcome. I'm sure you're all ready to gain a bit of knowledge, things that will help you in your career, whether you're an artist, you're a producer, whatever you do in the industry, you have come to the right place. So I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one. So when you hear your name, join me on the stage. Up first, we've got Brenda Juliet, who's the co-founder of music PR agency My Blaq Book. Welcome to the stage. Then we've got Krish Kudhail, who is a MA Music Business Management graduate and also Senior Artist Marketing Manager at Platoon. That's a lot to say. We've got Malaika Thomas, who is the International Marketing Manager at Live Nation. Welcome to the stage. We've got Maurice Dennamont, who has been in the industry for over 20 years, part of Soul to Streets, part of Rampage. Welcome to the stage. And lastly, we've got Selina Wedderburn, who is the Head of Operations at Rehegoo Music Group. Welcome to the stage. Great. So about to get started. This is a time where you get your notes apps ready, your notebooks or whatever you have, because we're going to be dropping gems today. I'm going to go through the panel. I'll let you all talk a little bit about what you do. And I'll start with you, Brenda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brenda. I am a music publicist, and I run an agency called My Blaq Book. We specialise in online print and brand partnerships, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. Krish.
Hi, guys. I'm Krish. I work in music marketing. Not to bore you all, but it's just so lengthy to explain everything. But I just joined Platoon 4 weeks ago. Prior to that, I was at Virgin Music, which is at Universal. And then prior to that, I was at Warner Music, at Parlophone. And then prior to that, I was at GRM Daily. That's a bit about me.
Great, Malaika.
Hi everyone, I'm Malaika. I'm currently the International Marketing Manager at Live Nation. So we market all the amazing tours that you probably see going around, all the good shows and that happen at the O2 and internationally. Prior to that, I was at Universal for a bit in the international marketing team, also doing marketing there. And another prior to that, I was at Sony Music as well, doing marketing there. So I've got a bit of experience on the label side and currently on the live side.
Hi everyone, I'm Selina. So I am Head of Operations at Rehegoo Music Group, which is an exciting time because we're just about to launch in the UK, which is a global service provider. So we license music so that people can use it for sync or in businesses, and we aim to pay artists as quickly as possible as well for the money we generate. So keep your eyes peeled for Rehegoo Music Group. I'm also co-founder and director for Tempo and Flow, which is a live music night, and we also do a podcast as well, and I'm an artist manager. And that's me.
Hey guys, my name's Maurice. I am a radio plugger, so record labels, artist managers will employ me to get their music played on the radio. I've been doing it for nearly 20 years. Everyone from Drake, Lil Wayne, D-Block Europe, Chronics. I've worked with quite a few people I'm also a DJ on One Extra, and I'm in a sound system called Rampage.
Round of applause for our panelists. Great. So as you can see, we have a plethora of experts. Today's topic is how to market and promote your music, and we've got different people from different avenues. So hopefully your questions, your burning desires, whatever, will get answered today. And we will have time for a Q&A a little bit later on. So if you do have any questions, just make a note of them. We'll be sure to answer them. Cool. So first, from the beginning, we need to clarify what is marketing versus promotion. So what are the differences? Anyone can jump on this. Marketing versus promotion.
Through experience, in my opinion, I feel like marketing is more, that would be your strategy and kind of the branding, how we're going to brand you as an artist and what that's going to look like. So on the label side, we kind of have these things called marketing timelines. And within that timeline, that will hash out everything. Say like if you're an artist and you're dropping an album, it's going to hash out what that's going to look like across weeks, months to come. And promo is more, I'd say, building awareness around the music, so a single or an album, a tour, whatever it is you're doing. So that could be anything from like doing TV appearances, doing interviews on radio, performances, anything leading up to the, what's it called? That's it, that's the word I'm looking for. Anything leading up to the release of your project, and also everything that comes after it as well.
I was just going to jump in just because I'm a publicist, I do PR, so it kind of falls within neither of the two, so it'll probably be like marketing versus PR versus promotion, just because PR kind of falls into that more than it does marketing.
So what is PR?
So for us, we are kind of like the middle people between journalists and the artist. So it's like, for us, it's like making sure that we're putting the music in front of a journalist to publicise it and put it online. Aside from that, it's just getting interviews as well and doing like shoots, like editorial shoots. And yeah, helping the promotions team get the messaging out there and get the single and the release out there.
Yeah, and I was just going to say is exactly similar to what you're saying, you know, like Tempo and Flow, the live music night. So when you've like got a single or an EP that you want to drop, then it's the perfect time to start looking at like live events that you can do, because that's all part of the promotion. So you can do all the marketing and stuff, but it is the execution of all the work that you put behind building that brand or your campaign or whatever. So yeah, and a bit of plugging obviously as well. Maurice?
Oh, I mean, I don't really feel like, I think you guys have answered the question already, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, we can move on. So let's go into the minds of some people that we have here today are music artists. Let's say they're about to or interested in dropping a EP or something. What's the step-by-step or run-through, based on your knowledge, what do they need in the campaign before the EP drops? Based on what you guys need.
I would probably say you need to make sure that your music is ready. If you have a concept for that project as well, so that can go with your artwork and the narrative that we can build around the marketing campaign. So it's kind of like having the music ready first, so then we can tell the story with everything else that we're going to build around the campaign. So I think it's always important to have the music ready. Then when we have the marketing campaign and the elements and everything kick off, then we can also build a social strategy of how we're going to get the promotion out. And then that's when everyone else will come on board, like the publicist and the plugger, and if TV is needed and so on. And yeah, and like obviously live shows and stuff come later on as well.
I think right at the beginning, you need to know like who you're trying to hit as well. Like, you know, if you're a rapper, you want to find fans of rap, but it might be that you're a driller, so you need to target a certain audience. It might be that you're a more conscious rapper, and you need to think, all right, cool. From a stylistic point of view, from the videos and everything else, like, these are the people that I'm trying to appeal to. So before you're even building your campaign, I think knowing who you are and who you're trying to hit is quite an important thing as well.
I'll just say on that as well, making sure that you do have a lot of music and understanding what is a single and what's not, because not everything, even though you might be feeling it and thinking yeah, it might not be the one, it might not be, you know, you might not need to be putting it out there. Always have a plan, because the worst thing is that you have a single, you drop it, you get momentum and stuff, and then afterwards it's just like, what's next? Because as you all know, at radio as well, you might find a new artist and you'll be excited about them and everything, and then there's nothing to follow up with, so then you lose that momentum. So that's something I'll always say, just make sure you've got decent music and a catalogue of music so that you're ready to drop your next single or whatever.
Yeah, great. What would you say, how important is marketing, PR and promotions in the running or to the success of an artist's project or overall career? How important are the aspects?
I think marketing is, if everyone agrees with me, I think it's actually the brain of the operations, like as in like, you know, that's where everything kind of kicks off from, where you have to build, your timeline and your rollout, and just kind of like what your aspirations are really for like the entire campaign and stuff. So I think it kicks off from there, I would say, like from the very beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree, but at the same time, I think that's more for an act that's signed under a label, because I'm just trying to think of it as if you're an independent artist, you're not going to have a marketing manager. So naturally, you'd probably, I think most artists just come to us straight away as publicists, and they're like, oh, can you help me get this out? Like, they wouldn't think to go to a marketing manager who would piece together the team, if that makes sense. So I think it would work differently if you're signed and unsigned. So I think to an unsigned artist, it would be a publicist, and to a signed artist, it would probably be a marketing manager. I don't know if you agree.
I think, I was going to say, because now there's like, because obviously there's the growth of like label services and like distributors and so on, and it's like there's digital marketing services that are like freelance now. Yeah. So it's almost like, even if you want to do it yourself, it's like there's a small fee that you can pay to just bring someone on board for the marketing, and that's like pretty much like your whole thing covered. So you don't, that's like before you would want to sign to a label kind of thing. Like, I mean, there's obviously label services that are signed under major labels. So obviously there's like ADA, The Orchard, Virgin Music and so on. And they obviously have their own in-house team, but then you might go to someone like Platoon, for example, or like Believe or Ditto and so on, and they can actually hire someone external that can like do your marketing as well. Or if you're not signed to anyone and you go through TuneCore, which is you upload by yourself, you can still get someone freelance like to kind of like do that side, and then obviously get someone freelance for like publicist, and then get Maurice to do like the radio plugin. It's like you can build a whole team around that basically.
Yeah, but you can also do it yourself. Like, you don't have to pay someone else to do it, you know. You can all contact radio stations that you think would like your music. You can all contact blogs that you think would like your music. You could think, you know what, if I do a TikTok playing my guitar, people are going to check for it. And that's marketing to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Very important. Can a show of hands, do we have any independent artists? Okay, around the majority of the room. Any signed? No one signed just yet. Okay, do we have any artist managers or like in the business side of things? Cool. Okay, nice to see all of you here today. All right, so this will be more for the independent artists, or how do we market and promote music with small budgets? Are big budgets necessary?
Obviously, it's good if you have got a big budget, like who doesn't want the money to put into their campaigns and stuff. But I think it's about being creative, because you could have someone who's got a 20k budget, or you can have somebody who's got $2,000, and it's what you do with it. Because you could blow, I don't know, 18k. I know that's a lot of money for a video, isn't it? But in case you were doing like special effects and all of that, and you spent $2,000, and you're like, oh, I've got to get a plugger, or I've got to put this on the social spends and stuff. Then it might not land as, you know, as well as you'd have hoped it would have landed. Whereas, like, you've got people that do a lot of TikTok and stuff. Like, so Dre and Mac, for example, I absolutely think she's brilliant and stuff. And look how big she is now. And that's her being creative, using her TikTok and, you know, showcasing her talent. And that's not based on a big budget. So it's just about being creative more than the actual budget, I'd say.
Yeah, just to add to that, as marketers, we love big budgets. I feel like with a bigger budget, you can obviously do more, and you do have more space for error. But with independent artists, I would say working with smaller budgets, it's very, very important to know who your fans are. So there's no point in, you know, spending money on, you know, paid digital, or, you know, you might have a budget to do like a billboard if your fans are not going to see it. So it's very important to know like who they are, their demographics, their age, where they live, are they students, do they have disposable incomes, how do they consume music, what platforms do they consume music on, and I think all those elements will help build a more successful campaign for independent artists. So it's all about your fans.
Yeah. I think just to follow on from you, I think it's also timing as well, because if you're quite fresh and you've only put out maybe 1 or 2 tracks, I think it's best to kind of build, you know, your small core fan base first, and then kind of like build up from there, and then know when to kind of dip into these areas as well. So I think timing, but also just kind of working out who your market is and who your listeners are as well. Definitely.
How would you advise them to find out this information, like the demographics? I mean, I'm sure it's pretty easy to find on the internet.
I mean, you can even start with like streaming. So you can even check like Spotify for artists, which artists always have on the back end. Apple Music is the same as well. So it's kind of like just checking your demographic, check who's listening and stuff. So that's like a first place that you can start.
And you can check things like what countries they're in and stuff like that as well. So, you know, if you're touring and you've got loads of people in wherever, I know, Finland, it might be worth trying to do a show there.
Great point.
Sorry, just to add to that. And on label side, on labels, basically, they have a lot of internal systems where you can kind of check artist demographics and who their fans are and that. But I have access as well to these softwares that can do all that. So if anybody wants insights into their demographics and stuff, just hit me up afterwards, have a conversation, and then we can kind of like keep in contact. I can let you know, give you some more stats on who your fans are.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And going back to the topic of TikTok and social media, how important is digital marketing and using social media and showing up for your fan base in terms of like creating success for yourself as an artist?
I mean, I think it's important to, you know, people are going to buy into you, and so giving them things that they like, whether it's performance-based or telling them about your life. I think different artists, their fans want to see different things from them. You know, someone like, I don't know, maybe a Dave is quite a private person, so you only really see the art and the artwork. You don't see him saying, I'm in Tesco's or I'm at KFC or whatever, whereas someone like Wiley, we all like his character, we think he's funny, so you'll watch his stuff just to see whatever madness he's getting up to.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I'd say obviously social media is a very powerful tool if you use it correctly. So yeah, I feel like a lot of fans, they like to interact with their artists as well. So having conversations with your fan, just generally you might do like a Q&A on a live or something, or just interacting with them, I feel like is a good place as well to kind of start in terms of knowing who your fans are.
Yeah, I'll just say on that as well, is not to force it. Just because something's a trend, don't jump on it if it's not for you, because it could be quite cringe. So you know, the thing is, we're in this day and age where there's like so many different opportunities now, so it gives you a chance to not just have to go down the traditional route of like radio. Radio is still important, but you don't just have to do that now. Do you know what I mean? But be authentic to you and just don't do stuff that's not you. That's what I'd say.
I think that's a good point. On the back of that, my next question was going to be, how important is traditional media? So like radio, print, of course, like maybe from a PR angle, someone might want an article published somewhere. So how important or valuable would you say the traditional forms of media are?
I think it can be just as important as all the digital aspects. So when we're talking about digital, we're talking about all your social platforms. That's your TikToks, your Instagrams, your Facebooks, your Twitters. It's also things like newsletters that go out to your fan bases. It's also things like if you have a website, you could advertise on your website. That's paid, so like pay-per-click on Google and stuff like that. That's all part of digital marketing. And when we're talking about traditional marketing, it's more things like radio, online, print, and all that. So I just think it depends as well on who you're targeting and where your fans are, because we have to remember not everybody is on social media. So again, it just comes down to knowing your fan base and where they are. Do you know what I mean? If you're, say for example, you've got a budget, whatever, and you're putting up a billboard in an area like Wimbledon, and you're like a rapper or a driller, is your fan base going to be in Wimbledon looking at this billboard? So it's going to be away.
There are some fans of
there
Wimbledon.
are.
I live near there.
Very small, probably.
Yeah, I would say that it's all relevant because they're all revenue streams. So what I'd say is don't shut off any opportunity just because you think, that's not in anymore or whatever, because they all generate income. But then just going back on the back of what you just said, just knowing who your audience is and know where they are, because that's the main thing you want to get to your audience.
What was the question?
How important is traditional media? But you as a radio plugger, you know the insights.
Yeah, for me, like, radio is less important than it was 20 years ago because there's more outlets now. But it's for artists, it's better that there's more outlets because you're not, you don't live and die whether you get on Radio 1, whereas you used to. So now you could be Koji Radical and you uncompromising with what you do. You have platforms that make you big, and then Radio 1 will be like, oh, who's this guy? He's exciting, and you get on it anyway. So I think that radio is still important, TV still is important, print is still important, but not as important because there's other stuff as well to build.
Okay, and now we've seen the rise of DSPs, so we've got Spotify, Apple Music. Would you say those, like getting playlisted and those type of things, are more important now?
More important than traditional
Well, yeah,
outlets.
traditional media.
I think they're equally as important.
And how do we get onto DSPs? Is this something the marketing team will deal with?
If you're a signed artist, you're just going to have a team anyway. The label are your team, so we've got all those connections anyway. But for independent artists, I think getting onto DSPs, we look at distribution companies, so like Ditto, CD Baby, what's the one? TuneCore, and all of those. They kind of help as a stepping stone to get on those and getting playlisted.
Yeah, and that's literally like you go on their website and you pay something, I think, and then you upload your track and it sends it to all the DSPs. And I think they offer other services, so they might have someone within that company. So Ditto, for example, will have someone who goes and talks to the DSPs on your behalf, but it's a service, so you might have to pay whatever it's £150. They would go and do a meeting with Spotify, a meeting with Apple, and say, oh, look, we've got this great rapper, we think it should be in these playlists.
And with that being said as well, when you go to these distribution companies, also have that conversation with them, because I feel like, yes, they can get your music onto good playlists and that, but what number are you going to be on that playlist? Are you going to be number 10 or are you going to be number 100? Do you know what I mean? That's very important. So make sure you're having those conversations also.
And one thing I would say, the most important thing is the music, because I feel like sometimes everyone can get so caught up about the strategy and like how they can get on. If your music is good and it's good quality, like it's going to get picked up and it's going to get on those playlists anyway. And do a little bit of research as well, like, ask around. I mean, at Rehegoo Music Group, something that we're going to be introducing is a fund called Elevate the Artist. So the artists that submit music to us and we, get them like on sync opportunities and stuff like that. There'll be select few artists who will support with like social media or put some spend on like pitching to playlists and things like that. So really do some research and find your way, but don't forget that the music has to be good. Like focus on that most importantly.
Now, how can up-and-coming artists think outside of the box for concepts for their marketing and their promotional campaigns? So in the last years, we've seen like the Gets with the army tank going down the street, trying to get to number one, basically. But loads of artists doing massive campaigns to get to the number one spot. At a smaller or lower level, what kind of advice or things that should they be doing to kind of bring in traction?
I was just going to say, I think Selina said it, it's just tapping into yourself and just knowing what your story is and just being able to kind of elevate on that, because you need to remember as an artist, you're completely different to somebody else. As much as from the outside looking in, someone says, you're a rapper. Like, you two are not the same rappers, if that makes sense. Like, you've obviously got differences within yourselves that you can kind of highlight. And I think if you have a good team around you, or not necessarily a team, but like people around you that can, put in their 2 pence and just say, oh, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. I think creative brainstorming is very like, it's a big tool for somebody that wants to kind of stand out, and I think it's very undervalued. Like, people don't like to brainstorm these days. And I feel like that's the only way that you're going to execute more creative ideas, because if you bring people on board to see what you can't see, that is definitely going to help elevate you and your campaign release.
I think even like going out, and I don't think artists want to hear this, but like looking at other campaigns and not necessarily copying it or using it as your blueprint, but just kind of like drawing inspiration from it. And I don't know if anyone remembers the movie Honey, but when Jessica Alba is like trying to find the choreography that she was trying to do, she literally was walking around a basketball court. So it's like the same thing, like use your environment, like use everything around you, you know, social media, and draw inspiration from that as well.
Yeah, and also in terms of being creative, it don't just have to be like posting on social media all the time. Think outside the box a bit. Like you can do like pop-ups. You know, tell your fans to pull up. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do like a quick live performance, or do you know what I mean? You could do like a release party. You know, if you approach venues and stuff, a lot of the time you don't even have to pay to hire the venue. It will just be based on meeting a minimum spend of the bar or something. You know, so it doesn't always just have to be so black and white. Just do fun things.
Do you guys have any success stories or of campaigns or any particular artists that you've worked with that you'd like to share? Yeah, from your own perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's been many, I guess, from label sides. I've had the opportunity to work with many artists from different genres. So J Hus, for example, was, and then on the more pop side, I don't know if you know a guy called George Ezra, who's like a big pop star. And even down to working on the live side with the tour stuff, I think it's really down to the team and having a team that, like, I can't stress enough, like, communication. Like that, I feel like that's going to make or break a campaign and how successful it can be. So if you're somebody who, you know, you're slow on your emails, or, you know, you're slow at getting back to people on your phone, I feel like that's kind of a setup to failure. Yeah, because in the kind of, and I say like on the label side, whatever, there's always people who want to know what's going on. Like you have to be really on it. So I feel like that stands as well as an independent artist. Make sure your team is solid, because any loose cannons will kind of sink the ship. So yeah.
Any other success stories from you guys?
I think just to follow on from what you said, I think it's definitely important to stay on top of your emails, because whether you are under a label or whether you're not, so we've worked with the likes of like NSG, Western, Odile, quite a few names I can't think on the spot, but I mean like NSG, for example, they're independent and they don't have a label team, but they've got a few people that work on their team. And if you are all not cohesive, then things are not going to move. Like the boys themselves, like they should not know what's going on. They just need to turn up. And there's been times where like sometimes you can email somebody and it's fallen through because there's too many fingers in the pot. And I feel like if you are not cohesive within your team, it's like one of them's going to come at 3 p.m. to a shoot and the next one's going to be there at 12 and the shoot can't start because there's 6 of them, you know? And it's like, yeah, it's just been, you know, organised and making sure that everybody's understanding what the final destination is and just making sure that you're all like one. And I think on a press perspective, I think an artist has to kind of be willing to do interviews. I know how daunting they can be, opening up. I think a lot of the times I think they sound a lot worse than they're actually going to be. They're just a conversation. I think we're never going to put you in a situation when a journalist is going to ask you the most random question or a controversial question, because our job is to actually be there, staff the interview and make sure none of that happens. So I think just be open to doing interviews and just making sure that you're happy to understand why we put you in front of a publication, because the more press you get, the more traction you get, and then you're more visible.
Great point. Krish, any stories?
There's quite a few. I'll probably dissect 2 of them, but it's like there's Internet Money, there's Digga D's campaigns, there's K-Trap, there's Millions, there's Pot of Paper. Like there's quite a few, but I'd probably get into Internet Money's one because that was like for Race for #1 in the UK, and we kind of knocked off a UK track to do that, and that was Headies Ain't It Different. Oh, wow. But it was like, so Internet Money are like a US act, so it was quite a good campaign. I mean, it lasted about 14 weeks in the race, so it's just like keeping the momentum, literally doing everything and anything. I mean, like super creative, and yeah, like I think that was a wicked campaign. I think Pot of Papers was more small scale, but it still had a massive impact with Training Day 3, and 2020 Vision as well, EP, which came before that as well. Digga D's campaigns, I think all of them are like very different, because I think it's all concept based around him. He's super creative, jumps in planning meetings and everything as well, as Maurice will probably know as well. So yeah, so I think it's just always about having a concept and narrative, which I mentioned before as well. That's always like building the success of your campaigns. And then always like, I think everyone's mentioned this, like make sure you're targeting the right fan base as well. And, you know, you're appealing to the right demographic with like all the campaigns that you do too.
Selina, I know you've worked with many people, Selina. So any stories you'd like to share or favourite campaigns?
Me personally, the positions I've been, like when I was working at Your Army, which is a big promotions company, I wasn't doing the actual plug-in stuff, but the team are on it. So I think it just goes back to the point, I don't know if Brenda said it, but just making sure that your team are solid, because with Your Army, they won't work any music unless they're proper feeling it, because they need to make sure that they are going to plug it to the best of their ability and make sure that it's a success. So I would just say, make sure whoever you select that they're not in it for the money, just, you know, for you to pay them a fee and then that's it. They've got to be passionate about your music. Look at their roster and just see what success stories they've had. Because, I mean, yeah, Your Army have done loads like Dave, they've done Wretch, they've done Christine and the Queens, they've done such a wide variety, Miss Banks. But yeah, just check out who you're going to be working with, really.
And from a radio standpoint,
Successes.
or any that you've plugged, any artists that you've plugged that have
I was thinking about it earlier. I mean, for me, I did Fuse ODG before Afrobeats was really popular, and had to fight with Capital Extra to be like, nah, this guy needs to go on the playlist. And obviously now Afrobeats is super popular. Same thing with Gigs when he brought out the Landlord album, and Lockdown was like the biggest tune on road, but at the time Capital Extra particularly felt that it was council estate music. Was that they actually said that to me, and you know, I went and spoke to all the DJs. So I spoke to Manny Norte, to Ras, and said, you know, you guys need to go and tell your bosses that this is the biggest tune in your set. So they did. They put the record on the playlist. It was an A-list record for them. And I think it changed their mind in terms of UK music and what it could do. And I think that was one of the first records that kind of started where we're at now, where, you know, when I DJ, we play most of the British records now. I don't play a lot of American stuff.
Okay, now, as you saw earlier, we have quite a lot of unsigned artists. Whatever stage they are in a career, if there's someone who's thinking, I don't particularly want to DIY and promote my own music or market my own music, how would they approach people like you, or how do they go about recruiting people like you to do the jobs for them?
I think it was Maurice actually that said this before, where sorry guys, hay fever, where you can literally, like, if it's Believe or if it's Ditto or any places like that to kick off with, because I would actually say that's where you should start. Like, I don't think you should go straight to like a major label or anything like that. I think you should go to a distributor first to kind of do the groundwork, and you never know, you might actually stay with them, because there's a lot of success stories that where you're independent, like, you know, Central C's on ADA, which is under Warner, but, you know, he has his own team to do everything and he's independent, you know, still hasn't signed properly or anything like that. So I would say a lot of these services are available on their websites, as cliche as that may sound. You can actually like fill in the forms, you know, submit your music, even leave comments for what services and stuff that you require. So I think that's probably the best way to start.
I think if you're looking for like press or radio and stuff like that as well, look at their roster, because in theory their roster should be things that they really love. So if you think your music aligns with that roster, you know that that person's going to love what you do as well, rather than, you know, someone who, you know, if you're a rapper and you're going to a plugger who does predominantly rock music, they might not love your music as much, or they might not understand it. So a similar roster, I think, is quite important as well for when you're looking to hire people.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I add, yeah. And also, I mean, just generally like meeting people in the industry, LinkedIn, like, that's a very, very powerful tool. People just think it's there like for jobs. No, like if you go on LinkedIn, you'll literally find like probably the whole of the industry on there, because they're all listed, you know, what they do. So it's just all about reaching out to people as well. Like, just shoot your shot. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you might write a few messages, whatever. Okay, cool. Not everyone's going to reply to you, but you might get that one yes. That's somebody who wants to help you. So I would say that. And just as well, like when I first started, when I was trying to get my foot in the door in the music industry, like people would say, oh, go out and network. And I hated it, but it's true. Like that's where you'll find like-minded people and, you know, places where you can build your team. So yeah, don't be shy. Just, you know, have those conversations, I'd say.
Just following on from what you're saying, what about your friends? Like, you might have some people around you that are sick at web design or something. And, you know, sometimes I think people just look at, oh, I just want to go with this company because they're so big and whatever. But why are you spending your money there? Ask your mate. Like, if they're talented, see who, when you're starting off, lean on them. Do you know what I mean? Build. Don't be afraid to build with people. Don't always think that you've got to go outside of your circle, I'd say. And that momentum is really important, because then when you do want to go to the labels and stuff, they're going to want to see that you've got some movement going beforehand before they take you on board. So build with what you've got around you before you start approaching labels and stuff.
Really great point. How important would you say the live aspect of things are? So showing up in real life, doing live shows. I know, Malaika, you're more on the live side of things, and events. How important are those getting in creating success for an artist?
I feel like the live side comes after the groundwork. So once your music's out there, once it has got that momentum, once there's a demand for it, then you can kind of look at doing live. I wouldn't say jump straight into, okay, I'm going to release my album or my single, boom, and then a couple months later, I want to do a live show. I would just say, feel it out, just see how it's going, and then look into doing live from my perspective.
There are like people like Ed Sheeran were doing live way before they had a record deal, though, or even were releasing music as well. So I think it's whatever suits what it is you're trying to do. Like,
yeah, I was just going to say the same thing as you, Maurice. I was going to say, I think it started off that way. A lot of people did open mics and did, intimate shows and intimate gigs. And I think that's the best way to kind of meet people within the industry. Because a lot of people do go out to these shows to kind of scope new talent. I do know, like, PRs as well, like myself, we do like to go and like find new emerging talent that we feel like are going to do really well, because I think sometimes we kind of miss acts online because there's so much to digest and there's so much to see, so much to hear. So I think don't be put off by doing live shows, because you might just meet that one person as well.
And I think it's really important, because it's all good when you've got a record, but you've got to, people want to see that you can actually perform. Do you know what I mean? That's where you can really see the talent, So Tempo and Flow, for example, we have people that reach out to us a lot, and that's what the platform's for. It's for emerging artists and stuff. But just make sure that you practice first, like, because sometimes you may think, yeah, I'll do it in my bedroom, and it, like, you might think that, yeah, it's all good, but then when you get up on the stage and then there's the lights and the mics and all of that, like, you need to practice. So just, and reach out to people like myself at Tempo and Flow, send music, find the right event for you, for your style of music, because not every show is for everybody. Again, it's just knowing who you need to reach out to.
you can practice, but you're still probably going to mess up, and that's all right, though. I'm a DJ, I mess up all the time. Longers will hate me for saying it, but he messes up sometimes as a DJ, but you learn,
And how do artists keep the ball rolling? So I've got my marketing strategy, I've got a couple of interviews, radio pluggers putting my tunes on air. Now the singles come out. What next? How do we keep the momentum going? Or how would you, based on your experience?
I would probably say, like, you can drop more music videos, like, if that's something that you want to do. Like, there's loads of artists that love shooting music videos. Like, I think Millions is an artist that I've worked with that loves... I feel like that guy's... I think he's actually somewhere abroad at the moment shooting another video. But I feel like he's always got, like, 8 videos in his back pocket or something. So it's like when we dropped Provisional License last year, it's like keeping the momentum going by dropping music videos. Then it's almost like... which I think, actually, this was mentioned before, but you could even do, like, pop-ups and stuff. where literally you can just turn up somewhere as long as, you know, you don't get caught and get told to get off the premises, because you need to get licenses for stuff like that, just FYI. So you can do like pop-up stuff like that as well. Just like any outdoor stunts as well. Social media, like TikTok especially. Like just thinking of like organic ways that you can kind of keep your music in front of people, I think is like a really, really good tool to do.
Any other tips about momentum?
I think it's working out what your fans want to hear from you as well, because I think, you know, like there's certain rappers that their fans just want to hear them spit. So you might have your project and then you drop a freestyle because you know that's what they really want. Someone like D-Block, their fans love their videos, so they'll stack loads of videos to keep the momentum of the project going. You might go on tour, and that's what keeps the momentum of the project. I think it's kind of what your fans want, and really.
Okay, now on to the intersections of the industry. So this is more about race and gender. So jump in where you feel you can. As a Black person in marketing, how is trying to pitch ideas that may be representative of the Afro-Caribbean community? Are there any difficulties or hindrances based on the race of the artist that you're trying to pitch?
Do I go?
Yeah, if you would like to.
I don't know. I think it's changing. I mean, I think maybe Afrobeats was a bit of a struggle, I think, because I think like it was the whole placement of it, like where do we put it, where does it fit and stuff. And I think when they have certain genres that they're fixated on and then they hear something like Afrobeats, they were like, where does this go? But it's like Afrobeats is like vibes, like you can put it anywhere. So it's kind of like, well, Maurice might say with Rama, for example, like I think with Rama for ages, like it was really hard to place him anywhere because it's kind of like, what is he? But then, you know, if you talk to Rama, like naturally he'll say, and I think he said this in some of his interviews, that he literally makes rave music, like that's like his thing. And it's almost like, how can you not place that anywhere? That can pretty much go anywhere, you know, that can go in the clubs, like anywhere, literally. So I think now it's kind of starting to break through just because a lot of artists are kind of setting pace with that. But yeah, I would say maybe like a few years ago, it was really, really difficult, definitely, to do that.
Do you think we're still in an era where there are stereotypes? Because historically we've heard maybe like darker skinned artists saying that they don't get as much support from their labels or finding budgets and teams and things like that, whereas a more mainstream, more fairer skinned or white artist might get more of the recognition. Do you think we're still in that era, or the industry is changing?
I think we're still in an era where like a major label will spend £500,000 trying to promote a pop group because they think pop music makes more money, whereas with a rapper they will spend 100,000 and then be like, you know, it's not working out. Or they'll wait for the rapper to be at a certain level before they want to pick them up, whereas they'll find 3 girls on the high street over there and think, you lot can be a pop act, and then they'll spend a fortune on it. So I think that still happens.
So more biases more around genre now rather than like race, or they go hand in hand?
I don't know. I was going to say, I think genre-wise, because I do agree with your point, because I've been in predicaments where there's certain like rap campaigns where certain label people might have been like, oh, we don't think this is going to do well. But like I personally and the team around the artist will know that the artist has potential. Like to actually like Pot of Paper, for example, like someone might be like, oh, I don't know if like he's going to come back and like do something, or Millions or K-Trap or just anyone like that, like who's all, you know, different genres. But then it's like when they go ahead and they have, you know, top 10 campaigns or just anything like that, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool, they can actually do it kind of thing. So it's like to Maurice's point where it's like you get to a certain level, then they pay attention. Otherwise, before that, they might not want to invest. So that, I think, still exists, yeah.
And do you know what? I think the stereotype about, you know, for example, Black artists just do rap and R&B, or do you know what I mean? There's more to it than that. And that's where I think we need to make change, because at the end of the day, you've got some sick rap artists like the Nova Twins, for example. Do you know what I mean? And it's like they had to struggle so much more because they're going into a genre of music where it's white dominated and stuff. So I think it just needs more execs in positions at certain labels and stuff, and, you know, have more of a diverse range of tastes in music as well, to say, look, like, you know, black music doesn't just mean, you know, well, black people don't just do rap and, you know, drill or whatever. So I think there's a lot of change that still needs to happen, but we are, you know, it is happening, but it just a little bit more needs to be done. Well, quite a lot more needs to be done, not a little bit.
And I guess traditionally, sometimes now we have like the Cardi B's, we have the Megan Thee Stallions, where sex is kind of like the selling point. Do you think, as women in the industry, women now need to portray a certain type of image in order to be successful or promote themselves in a certain type of way? Or are we moving more away from that?
I think you still have your artists that, I mean, I'm just going to randomly just put it out there and say Adele. Like, it's like you still have your artists that are completely covered up and, you know, and obviously she's in her own lane anyway, but then you have someone like LMA who, you know, we was talking about earlier, like, she's never had to do anything like that, and, you know, it's always in her voice and everything and her music that she makes that kind of sells it, as opposed to, you know, Cardi B, or as you mentioned with Meg as well, where it's like you have to dress and act a certain way for, you know, to have that appeal. So I do think that there's still artists out there, and even like in the UK, it's like maybe not as established, but like Mahalia, for example, who's just amazing with, you know, everything that she drops as well, and, you know, they still family keep their clothes on. So and I feel like eventually, you know, for her especially, like, she'll get her breakthrough soon. But I feel like if the music's good, I feel like you can't, you know, you can't argue with that.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think that was like a marketing thing for them, though. I think if you look back to Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, like, naturally, they were always like that. So I think that's just them being themselves. So again, it just goes back to you just being yourself, I think.
Look at Little Sims as well, for example.
Yeah.
I feel like, Little Sims, like, she's amazing. To me, she's so far gone, and I feel like she should be a lot further than where she is now, but she's still doing great anyway. But she stayed true to herself. She's, you know, dresses the way she wants to dress and has her hair a certain way, and doesn't really live up to what she feels the people want. So just be true to yourself.
And what changes do you think the industry needs to make in order to be more inclusive? I feel like you got a lot to say.
Well, soft plug. We look after an initiative called Power Up, and it is under PRS Foundation. So that is an initiative that helps Black creators and Black execs move up and, you know, pass through the glass ceilings. And I feel like as an industry, it's not only just for Black people, but I just mean as collectively as an industry, we just need to kind of respect artistry as a whole. And I think a lot of the time, it's just going back to the R&B conversation we were having earlier, I think R&B is not really respected here in the UK, and we hear these conversations all the time. I feel like R&B acts need to go to America before they are taken in, and then they come over here and then everybody's like, oh yeah, but they were here, you know, they're UK based. It's like LMA, for example. It's like she went over to the States and then came back, and then everybody was like showing her love. But I think going back to like just the respect for artists, I think it's just making sure that you stay true to yourself, and you're just making sure that, you know, you're not compromising your artistry to kind of settle and find your place in the industry just because you think this is what a label wants, or this is what, you know, this is how you're going to sell music, or this is how you're going to get picked up. I think it's just making sure that you're staying true to yourself, and yeah, you understand who you are as an artist.
So I have some individual questions. Krish, I'll start with you. So you've been a part of J1's campaign, Dig a Deep, Pot of Paper, Internet Money, as you mentioned. What does it take to create a campaign that has chart-topping results?
I think it's like making sure that you've secured your fan base. So like your demographic is actively like there basically in literally everything that you do. And as cliche as this may sound, literally be in everyone's face. So obviously J1 isn't from London originally, like he lives in Nottingham. So it's kind of like, how do you appeal to like the London crowd and stuff, and like, you know, the different content pieces that we can do, so that, you know, involves press and stuff as well that can help like build his brand and everything like that in the UK as a whole. So it's just kind of like, focusing on demographics and stuff, and just making sure you're in everyone's face, making sure like you almost have a tick list in everything that you're doing in marketing. So it's like, if we want to do anything traditional, like outdoors, obviously like ad planning and stuff, but also doing like organic content, so it's like personal to like the fans when they kind of view it and stuff. So it was like doing more tailored marketing like that, which we wasn't really seeing at the time. But has actually become quite popular at the moment. And then it's like outdoors, just like creating noise and just making sure that he's doing like meet and greets, like even if it's like on the streets or something like that worked a lot. And I think that worked very well for Potter Paper's campaign for Training Day 3, because literally it was like him and his managers like in a van, like going everywhere, like London and like regional, like Manchester, Leeds and everywhere with, you know, CDs and stuff. And it's like, you know, just selling it literally like that. And that was a top 3 album in the end. So it's literally just like staying true to your fan base, catering to your core fan base. But then sometimes there could be an A&R strategy where you might have certain features that appeal to like a bigger demographic. Like I think we kind of saw that with Nux's project lately, where obviously he's always had a cult following, but then the Stormzy feature really put him on the map and really made people pay attention to him. And then obviously again he had a top 3 album as well at the end of it. So yeah, so all of these elements really play a big part.
Okay. Great. On to you, Selina. So you used to work for Your Army, which is an independent music promotions company. So how do promotions differ for an independent artist versus a signed artist?
I think it's just about when it's an independent artist, again, it's all about them building the momentum and just making sure that you know who your fan base are. So you have to do a lot more work. So, for example, when I was working at Your Army, they'd want to see that you've like got a certain amount of following, that they, you know, because at the end of the day, you need to have that in order for them to sell the story to people like Maurice and stuff, because they want to know that there is something there. With the more established artists, so like Dave, for example, he could just go away and work on his project and be quiet for a bit, and then when he drops it to us, it's a lot easier to plug it. I mean, I think people will think, oh yeah, you just get the Dave album and there's no work, that you don't need to put anything. You do, because it's about making sure that you're plugging within enough time, because if it drops on another day, on the same day as somebody else who's really big, you need to make sure that you're pitching it to the right people, and it's all about planning. But you just got different strategies depending on what stage you're at with your music.
Maurice, as a plugger, as a DJ, as someone who's been in the industry for many years, what kind of things are you looking for when people send you their music, or that you know will kind of have mass appeal or will do really well?
What are you talking about for me to play?
Yeah.
I just have to like it, I think, and it's
easy.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
Is there any kind of, would you say there's a particular formula that, well, I guess music is creative, but is there a formula that works that...
No, because I think you like things for different reasons. So, like, I love jungle and garage and stuff like that, and you might like it for the just rawness of the tune. Then you might like Anderson .Paak because he's an amazing musician and, you know, a real creative. You might like Little Sims because she's an amazing creative. You might like Giggs because he's just dirt. Do you know what I mean? It's like you like everything for different reasons.
Yeah. Okay, fair point. And Brenda, you also run a women's empowerment platform called Girls Empower. What tools have you used based on your knowledge and your previous experience that you use to promote your own events? So advice for anyone who wants to promote an event as well.
I think for me, because I've had it for a few years now, I've had it for about coming up to 5 years. My strategy was basically building a community for the platform. So for me, I don't think about trying to get a big number of people in the room. I just try to focus on people that actually want to take from the people on the panel. So I think for me, it's just focusing on what your outcome of the event would be, and just focusing. So from an artist perspective, it's like focusing on what you want to achieve from your music. So it's like if you want to create a conscious sound, or like a party sound, like a rave sound, or actual music that you want people to resonate to, it's just thinking about it like that. I'm a publicist as well, so it's like my role to kind of connect with people. It's my job to kind of go out and meet new people, but I like to do that naturally anyway. I'm a bit of a talker, and I just like to hear other people's stories as well. So for me, it was just like a no-brainer just to create a platform that helped to put out more knowledge for people from the people that I've kind of bumped into over the years. So yeah, that's basically where it's come from.
Malaika, so you've worked previously at Live Nation. What does it take to produce, to promote at such a high level? Like, what kind of responsibilities do you have, and like expectations do you have in your position?
Oh, there's a lot, because I'm on the international team. So what I do is I look after everything that happens internationally. So say, for example, Alicia Keys is doing a world tour. So that will happen in the UK, but it will also happen in all the European markets and, you know, Latin American markets as well. So it's just making sure that it all comes down to the marketing plans as well, making sure it's tight the way it should be, and checking through things thoroughly, and questioning things that maybe don't look right before it actually happens, to avoid any like madness before the tour's out there. And also assets are very important, making sure you have all your artwork in place. I would say as well, like routing a tour as well. So say, for example, if you've got a show in London, but then you also got a performance in, I don't know, like Birmingham, whatever, then you've got another show back in London. Just make sure it all makes sense in terms of where you're going to. I think all those elements definitely play a part in how the campaign shapes to push the tour successfully as well.
Okay, great. Thank you to all of you. You gave such incredible points. Round of applause for our panelists, everyone. Great. Okay, now it's your time. We're going to have a quick Q&A. So do we have any questions?
AAA, access all areas.
Okay, we do have some hands up. Hello, introduce yourself.
My name is David. I'm a music producer. And by the way, there's a QR code on my back, so if any artists want any beats, anything like that, just scan it.
Very smart. Very smart way to promote.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, as a music producer, what are some of the marketing and promoting ways that you would ask? Like, I would want to know, like, how can I market myself?
Yeah, like if you do like posters and stuff, which you can get for quite cheap as well, just stick a QR code in there and you can like tailor it to access any, like you can build your own web page, like it doesn't cost that much to do, and then you can have everything on there, like your bio, your music, everything like that. This is a good way to like market yourself as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Ray. I'm a talent manager and also a journalist. So as a journalist, I kind of know that with certain publications, everyone wants to get on the biggest one, but sometimes it might be a bit too early in your career for certain publications. So how can an artist kind of know who to target when?
I think it's just knowing whether or not you've had press, and I think that's an easy question to answer because you'd know. So if you haven't had any press, I think the best thing to do is starting off with going to smaller blogs. I think for us as publicists, we kind of do this research too whenever we take on a new act. We like to see like if you guys have got any footfall. So if you've actually been covered before, if you've not been covered before, where you've been covered, where you haven't been covered. And I think if you have been covered on some of the smaller blogs already and you're looking to get onto bigger publications, I think for us, we need to scope where we can fill in the gaps first, because I think places like Clash, Notion, Days, ID, like they need to see a footfall. They need to see, like, I think you said it earlier, Malaika, like your numbers. No, Maurice, you said it about your numbers. Just making sure that you've got a bit of a social following, that you've got a little bit of a buzz. So I think it all depends on where you're at as an artist, and just making sure that you understand that as well. I think that's the one question we get all the time, like, why am I not on Clash? And it's like, because you're not ready for Clash. And it's just understanding that and just not taking it to heart as well if you don't get covered on these publications as early as you would like to be. It's just knowing that, you know, your journey's still going and it will happen when the time's right.
Hi everyone, I'm Sadiq. I'm a music producer and creative. the thing that I kind of find difficult when I'm, I guess, working is finding the balance between being creative and being a business person. And sometimes when I'm being a creative, being a music producer, getting to do with artists and stuff, I find this thing where I start seeing things from a business perspective, like the marketing, the promotion, the strategy, and I've found I've gone more interested in doing that. So how do you guys maybe advise from maybe transitioning from the creative side into the business and marketing side? I
think it's networking and getting a mentor. I think having a mentor is so important. I have one on the business side of stuff, and I've also got just people, not really a mentor, but people that I speak to in the music industry as well. And that kind of helps me kind of navigate the not confusion, but like the questions I have that fall in between those two spaces. So I think definitely having somebody that you can speak to who's had experiences in probably both sides, and then that could probably help you make more the decision of where you want to be, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe, yeah. So for me, it's a thing where I'm interested in getting into marketing, but also I really enjoy the live and the promotional aspect of things. So it's a thing where right now I'm in a predicament where I'm like interning at different places, as you said, mentoring, reaching out to people on different platforms and stuff, LinkedIn, Instagram. But it's kind of just a thing where I'm kind of trying to get to that place which I enjoy. I just kind of enjoy the whole creative process. So it's kind of just finding that balance, I guess.
I think work experience is a really good thing to do for things like that, because you can try different places for a couple of weeks and really see what it is that you like doing. So if you're doing that already, I think you're kind of on the right path.
Hi, my name is Melle Gibson, and I'm an artist based out of New York.
Hey.
Hello. So I recently ran into an issue where I went through a distribution company, DistroKid, and ran into a technical error where I uploaded my EP, but they, for some reason, had some sort of error on their end, and they released my music early, which made it ineligible to be considered for Playlist. So I know I'm probably not the only artist that's experienced this. So I guess my question is, besides submitting to other curated playlists and things like that, like, do you have any recommendations or any advice for artists that run into different technical difficulties like this?
Yeah, do you know what? I was going to say the same, because I think I had an artist that we were working with as well, and that happened to them. Their EP came out a couple of days before, and it's annoying when it's an EP because it's like a whole body of work. But I think the best thing to probably do is you can still reach out to press, like you can still reach out to like blogs and stuff, because regardless of it takes a while for journalists to kind of digest bodies of work anyway. So if they do like it, naturally they'll cover it, and it's still nice to get like the press trickling through, especially if you're still emerging as well as an artist. And secondly, a lot of press have like editorial playlists. So even if you're not looking at like Spotify, like the bigger playlists that are on Spotify or Apple, for example, like some magazines have their own playlists that they'll add certain tracks to. So like think about that. I guess if you're reaching out to like blog pages, they might have.
I think on the back end of most of like Spotify and stuff like that as well, you can update them at any time about a release. So if something else is happening with your EP, you can, I think, can you do that on Spotify for artists? You can do like the sales note stuff.
Yeah, you can do it as long as the release hasn't gone live yet. But it
No, but even after it's gone live, you can contact them and say, this is what's happening.
Yeah, it became like a rigid process, because I've been in talks with them.
Go to press, like press,
and use TuneCore, that's pretty good.
TuneCore. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I do use TuneCore. I recommend it. It's one of the best. I've been using it for a while. And now I'm using SpinUp, but unfortunately SpinUp is going to shut down its services for independent artists. But I've got my new release coming out on the 27th in 6 days, and it's through SpinUp. So I'll probably have to, I don't know how it's going to work out, because they might keep, it's going to be invitation only, literally. So you have to be invited by SpinUp now in order to distribute for free from July. So my name is Raouf Adir. That's here. I'm originally from North Africa, so I'm based in West London, Shepherd Bush. I'm a rapper, producer. I rap in French, English, and Arabic, so trilingual. And obviously, a lot of I do fusion, so I try and merge different styles from Spanish music to Afro music with hip hop, and trying to be creative and bring something new. So my question is to do with my new release that is coming out in 6 days. My question is, how long do you think a marketing campaign for a new single release should be? And like, should you keep on marketing like even after the release, how long should you do it? And what are your hints for that? So, because some people say you need to start a long time before, or like, you know?
I don't think there's any rules with it, because you work something for as long as you feel like you need to, and sometimes things will go away and then come back. Like there's people like, you know, there's this girl Cat Burns who I think is like #2 in the charts, but it's an old record that suddenly people started using it on TikTok, and then the label recognised, there's a spike there, and then SZA tweeted about it, and then they put a whole marketing campaign around it. So the whole campaign has been like 2 years, you know. But that's not to say, you have to work a record for 2 years. It's just, you know, you might put out your video and you see that, okay, it feels like it's dropping off now, and move on. Or you might see, loads of people have hit it up today. What happened today that's different? Let me look into that. So I don't think there's any rules to it.
But I think, yeah. When I was at Your Army, we tend to want it as early as possible, because you need time to pitch and just making sure that you're plugging it at the right time. So I'd say generally give it like a couple of weeks at least before you need to be prepping before you actually do the release and do your pitching to radio stations, and making sure that if you're going to drop a video that you build some hype and momentum around it. I mean, like with GRM, I think normally now they have a backlog. It takes about a month for you to get the date that you actually want to drop your video. So it depends what you're trying to achieve, but definitely as much time as you start preparing as possible will just help when you actually release.
Hi, peace. My name is Shumba. Yeah, I've got this theory in my head there that I've been thinking about for a while, so I'm sitting in front of you guys, so I thought let me ask you about it. But what about if an artist just decided to say, I'm going to go and get a bank loan, for example, and say you look at, you say, CJ Huss's radio campaign, I thought that was really good. Who's working on that, like at Black Butter, or who did the marketing for Digga D's record? Are we seeing people freelancing, like working in labels? So like say you got a job at Island, for example, are people also freelancing on the side and doing other projects on the side? Is that something that you guys do, or is that not a culture that's around?
No, so like if you work for a label, so like say like I'm at Platoon, and when I was at Virgin doing Digger's stuff, you're like contracted to just that label. You're not allowed to do freelance stuff. Like it's literally in your contract. But if I was to go freelance and become a consultant for these labels, then yes, like I'd be able to take it on.
So they lock that.
They lock it off, yes. Literally in your contract, you probably get sued, I think.
It's of interest.
I've never tried it. I just keep telling everyone, no, it's in my contract. No, don't ask me. So yeah, for like it will say in their bio and stuff that they're like a freelance marketing consultant, and then like Maurice said, you can check like who they've worked on and stuff, and see if it's like similar acts that it kind of appeals to you, and then you can just like reach out to them and just kind of take it from there.
I was going to say there's like smaller PR agencies as well. So like you said, freelancers within marketing, but also there's smaller PR agencies that actually work with labels. Mm-hmm. So a label will kind of outsource an agency. So like myself, like my Black Book, they'll come to us and be like, we've got this release. Like, are you able to run it? And da da da. So it's like you can go to smaller ones. You don't necessarily have to go to labels, because sometimes they have in-house, sometimes they have external.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. And thank you to all of you. Did we get what we needed from that? Yeah? Yeah, cool. Yep. Round of applause for our panelists.